Alrighty, team. So this is week one of our team work-life balance challenge here at BGL. And so this is going to be our first lesson. Really, the purpose of this challenge is to give you guys some tools to aid you in creating a really good balance between your work life and your personal life. All of these lessons are meant to be really short and digestible, so I'm not going to take up too much of your time, but I did want to give you just a little bit of information and insight to help guide you in this first week of the challenge. So I know pretty much all of us know what the definition of work-life balance is. The real challenge when it comes to this balance is identifying when it's off and really choosing how to get some solutions when it comes to that work-life balance. So we all know what it is, but kind of figuring out what is going wrong and why we feel a little bit off balance, and then determining solutions are going to be the next step. So let's get started on a couple of things. So the biggest thing to keep in mind when it comes to work-life balance is choosing to approach it in a way that it's more of a cycle and not necessarily an achievement. So we're never going to achieve work-life balance. What we're going to do is go through a cycle where we will be a little bit off balance, and then identifying what's going wrong, and then utilizing the tools that are in our toolbox to really get back to that balance. So it's more of a cycle and not an achievement. So you don't have to feel like you failed at work-life balance, but really kind of going back to the basics, going back to the foundations of the skills that you've learned before, and re-implementing them in different ways as your work life and your personal life changes, so that you can continue to have progress with this and have success with it and not feel like a failure when that balance tends to be a little bit off. So engaging with that cycle continuously, because circumstances and priorities will evolve all the time. That's the nature of life, and really viewing it more of a cycle and not necessarily as an achievement. So the big question is, how do we do this? So I have a couple of different steps in achieving work-life balance here and really working through that cycle. So the first step is to pause and denormalize. And really what that means is that it's not normal to have an imbalance in your work life and your personal life. And I think in our society these days, we've identified that it is normal. So kind of taking a moment to pause and say, this is not normal. I don't have to accept this as normality, right? So working excessive hours and neglecting personal responsibilities, it should not be the norm. We in our team don't want it to be the norm, and you shouldn't want it to be the norm for your life either. So step one is to pause and denormalize. Step two is paying attention to your emotions. And this really takes a pause in your life, and looking within. So do you feel energized? Do you feel fulfilled and satisfied? Or are you feeling angry and resentful and sad? These are really big triggers that you have an imbalance with that work-life balance. So just kind of taking a deeper look within, paying attention to those emotions, and really taking stock of what you're feeling, whether it's positive, negative, or anywhere in between. Step three is to reprioritize. And sometimes this is just a conversation that you have within your head. And sometimes this is a conversation where you can write things down, have a conversation with somebody else about it, but really thinking to yourself, what am I willing to sacrifice and for how long? And sometimes that takes asking that question of your personal life. Sometimes that is asking that question of your work life. What are you willing to sacrifice, and how long are you willing to do that? And just bringing to words some of those thoughts. That would be step three, so reprioritizing. Step four is considering your alternatives, and this may take some time. So reflecting on what aspects of work and life could be different, to better align with the priorities that you have with yourself. And keep in mind, when we're doing growth and development plans and looking within ourselves of what we want to achieve, those are your priorities. So kind of reflecting on what aspects of your work and personal life could be changed to better align with some of those goals and priorities you have so that you can link everything up. It doesn't have to be separate, your work and your personal life. You can link them up together. It just requires a little bit of reflection and reorganization. And I would say that number 4 is probably one of the longer steps in this cycle. But number 5 is going to be the longest step, right? So implementing those changes. And those can be both public or private changes. Public changes would be like setting up time boundaries for work and telling your coworkers that. Or saying no to something that a coworker is asking of you that isn't really one of your core responsibilities and something that you just don't have the capacity for. That would be an example of implementing a public change. Private changes are more changes within yourself. So like choosing to prioritize a breathwork practice, or choosing to spend more time reading, or like doing a self-care activity. That would be more of like a private change that you make. And this implementing changes, this can be something that you implement a change that you want lifelong. It might be a temporary change, permanent. So that's the longest part of the cycle, but really the most important one. And like I said, we're approaching this more as a cycle and less of an achievement. So you may go through step 1 through 5, and then there may be a change in your life, and you realize that you have to go through this cycle again, really to achieve balance. And that's okay. It's okay to repeat this cycle, rinse and repeat, as your life circumstances changes, both in work and in your personal life, so that you can achieve balance anytime within your lifespan. Okay, so some effective ways to implement either those private or public changes. So number 1 is goal setting. So you'll use steps 1 through 4 to determine some realistic ways in which you can implement changes that improve this balance and cycle. So again, this is going to be something that's going to take a little bit of time. Kind of step number 4 is really that goal setting, if you would say, step in the process. So creating some goals, then making public changes. So reaching out to your team to voice these goals so that they can keep you accountable. And we all want to support you and your work-life balance. So making some of those public changes allows us to support you in that, and to keep you accountable, because we want you to have balance too. And then private changes. So changing your own patterns, but considering involving an accountability buddy, whether that be part of our team here or somebody that's in your personal life, again, to continue to make those changes a little bit more accountable, but maybe a little bit less public. So down to the nitty gritty. So we've got our action items for this week. So these are the things that I would like you guys to work on in relation to this first chapter in our challenge. So number 1 is a social media detox. So staying off of social media platforms in order to focus your attention on this work-life cycle. If you choose to do a social media detox, you get 3 points for each day that you detox. And we're looking at weekdays, so Monday through Friday. Goal or intention setting. So using steps 1 through 4 of this presentation to determine some goals that realign your work-life balance. And I would like you to share at least one in the Slack channel, and that would get you 3 points for the week. You can share as many as you would like, but at least one to get those 3 points. And then we have our 3 foundational action items for the week. 1 is steps, so getting 10,000 steps per day. You get 1 point per weekday. Finishing this weekly video. So you completed it, you watched it, we're at the end, woo woo. So you get 1 point for the week for watching this video, and then submitting your point tracker survey on Monday. So if you submitted last week's point tracker, well, this week is week 1. So on Monday, when I send out the point tracker for you guys to tally up the points, then you will receive 1 point for the week if you submit that tracker. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you for listening, and I will catch you in the Slack channel and in our video next week.